Thanks, Jim. Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Wheeler, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober by the grace of God and the 36 spiritual principles of Alcoholics Anonymous since January 1st, 2004. For that, I'm very grateful. It's nice to be here. I am tasked with step 10. I love step 10. A lot of times we come in here and we talk about steps from the last time we formally went through the steps. Step 10 is not like that. The rubber meets the road right here, right now. And it's, that hasn't been the story all the time in my sobriety. I can tell you that I am the guy that has varied experience with step 10. And I think that in my experience, that's the case with a lot of us. And, there was a time where if you would have asked me what my experience with step 10 was, I'd tell you that I review my day at the end of the day. And if I find anything the matter, I will take care of it as soon as I can. And, I know today that that's not its intention. It says in the book that that we've entered the world of the spirit. I loved how Mickey started this thing off this morning, talking about alcoholism isn't found in the bottle. And that's the thing that confused me the most. I would stop drinking, and I'm that guy that could stop for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks given sufficient reason. And my life always got worse. The sober condition grinds on me. And the cool thing about Alcoholics Anonymous that I didn't understand when I showed up here is that it treats the sober condition. When I walked in the doors, I wanted it to treat how I drank and how it affected me. And I didn't understand that it would treat the sober condition so that grind didn't feel like grind. And that's what it does. It treats a sober condition so it doesn't feel like a grind. And it makes it doable. And we become transformed here. And when it says we've entered the world of the spirit, that is the solution to alcoholism in the sober condition, is to the spiritual awakening that it talks about. And and the best condition to roll into step 10 is having done those 9 steps with a sponsor that's done those 9 steps before step 10, because those are the things that peel away what's blocking me, that allows me to have a view of the world bigger than myself. And I have good news and bad news. Earlier in the text, it tells us that the world and its people are often quite wrong. The bad news is that the world and its people are often quite wrong. The good news is that God knows that. I am one of the people. And in step 10, it is apparent that I'm one of the people. And I learned to start watching myself. It says that we grow, that our next function, once we're in the world of the spirit, is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. I had no idea what I was growing in, what I was supposed to be effective at. I didn't know. I just thought it was a cool thing they wrote in the book and moved on. And what I know today is that being one of those people in the world, in the spiritual world, is what I'm trying to be better at. How do I be better at that? I'm the guy that thought the world was coming at me. My troubles were coming at me. And it's been said here today, and what I know to be the truth today is that stuff's coming from me, and this process that we're going to talk about in step 10, it is how I have some impact on what that looks like. What I know today is that we're all God's kids, and when I use the word God, I use it so you know what I'm talking about. When I say the word God, everybody has their own conception of God. There's something that comes up in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know it's probably different than what comes up in my mind. The cool thing is that you have had an experience. If you've gone through the 9 steps up till now, you've had an experience on what that is. And there's something that comes up. And we're striving. We're beginning to talk about a daily discipline, something that rolls around in our shoes with us, that connects us with that. That is a simple, pragmatic approach to staying connected to that. I didn't know how to do that. I had no idea. That's why that sober condition would deteriorate every single time, because I had no idea to be the man I wanted to be, what I needed to do. The journey in alcohol to Alcoholics Anonymous was one of me trying to live up to my own principles, my own values, and I couldn't get it done. I disappointed myself all the time. And I didn't know why, because I really wanted to. I yearned for it, and I couldn't get it done. And we've gone through this process now where I feel pretty good. I've gone out, I've cleaned up the past. I've taken a hard look at some of those things with someone else. I know that I've made a decision. All those things are in place, and I know where the power is, and I want to stay connected to it. And says we continue to watch. We talk all the time in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm one of them. We say we're awake. Our job now is to stay awake. I'm awakened. How do you know you're awake? When I'm asleep, I don't know I'm asleep. I have no idea. I'm sleeping. And my journey here has shown me that there's times where if you would walk up to me and ask me, are you awake, Jack? I would say, yeah, I'm absolutely awake. And something happened, and there's some shift in me in the next 10 seconds where I'm awakened to something new. And that's what these daily disciplines are about. It's so that I can stay awake, so that my old ideas, so that those things that are ingrained in me, we can break through them, so that we can have a new experience, so that we can grow in understanding and effectiveness of how we're walking on this planet, of how I am acting and behaving as I walk on this planet. And I'm the one that'll tell you I'm awake. And then the next second that somebody says something and the hair stands up on the back of my neck, and I know it's absolutely true, and it's a spiritual truth, and I believe it, and I'm a changed man. And if I'm connected on the level I'm talking about, and I'm doing the things outlined in the daily disciplines that are talked about in this book, it happens. It happens in spite of me, not because of me. And it says we continue to watch. I was on a trip in the Grand Canyon when I was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years sober. And I'm up early. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting in Nankoweap. And the whole camp is asleep, and I'm sitting out on a boulder, and I'm smoking a cigar, and I'm praying, and I'm meditating, and I'm doing what these disciplines tell us to do. And it's all good. My cell phone hasn't rang in I think it's day 7 on the river, and it hasn't rang in 7 days. I'm with my wife. I'm with a group of good friends. We're doing a private rafting trip on the canyon, and the sun's coming up, and I don't think to this day I've seen many things that are as spectacular as the way the sun lights up the canyon walls as it comes up, and just the light just comes down into the bottom of the canyon. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just in that spot. It's all good. And I finish the cigar, and I rub it out on the side of the rock. And I finish praying, and the sun, it's glorious. Everything's good. And I get up from the rock, and I realize when I get up that I had left a big black mark on the side of the rock where I put that cigar out. And I field stripped it, and I put it in my pocket. I didn't want to damage the place. It's just pristine beauty. And I was like, oh my God, this big black mark on the side of this boulder down there. And I went down to the river, and I grabbed some sand and water, and I'm trying to wash the side of this boulder, just devastated at the mark I left. And I couldn't get rid of it. It faded, I got it to fade. And I bet today that mark is still on that boulder. And the epiphany for me, and it wasn't right then, because I'm just not that quick, but I'm rowing down a couple of days later, and I realized that everything I do leaves a mark. Everything. And what I know today is the 10th step, and these disciplines that we talk about, they guide me to leave a better mark everywhere I go. And I'm the guy that gets caught up in the fact that maybe I'm just trying to get a better attitude. I'm trying not to be resentful, and I'm trying to not live in anger and all this other stuff. But even when I'm in that perfect moment, even when my motives are pure, I leave a mark. How do I leave a better mark? And if I can come at this from that place, where not relying on myself, relying on these principles to bring me to a guided spot that's bigger than me, I'm held to a much higher standard. And that's what I think we're trying to do. And we learn to watch, and we're watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And those four things, you can bucket the manifestations of self, the root of the root of my malady, the essence of it all. You can bucket it all the time in one of those four things. It's always going to land there. It's always going to come up in selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. And if I can learn to watch my own behavior, and because remember, the spiritual malady of alcoholism always has me pointing out, I want to fix the internal condition with external stuff. And I'm in the world of the spirit now. I'm at that place where it's between me and God. And I need to learn to watch my own actions, my own behavior. I need to be able to actually, self-examination becomes this ongoing conversation in my own life. I don't need to be told. I don't need to be scolded. It's this ongoing dialogue that goes with us, and it becomes quieter. I'm the guy that's so wrapped up in resentment that I can't have I'm so wrapped up in self-consciousness that there is no room for God consciousness. And as I learn to watch, and I learn to see that I am one of God's kids, the self-consciousness lessens, the God consciousness rises. And I think that's the magic. That's what we're trying to go for. I can get so wrapped up in my day at work that I don't even see other people. I'm so driven by self. And if I can just take a moment and think to myself, how am I being self-centered here? All of a sudden the light comes on, and there's other people in the room. They're God's kids too. And all of a sudden I understand, I can be understanding. And I stop driving by mandate, and I stop trying to be understood. My phone will ring, and it's one of the guys I sponsor, and I can have a conversation with them about it. I can ask God to put my feet right where they are. And the practice becomes easier. It becomes the fun. We talk. I heard it said a couple times here with what I heard here today, that we talk about formally going through the steps. And yeah, I think there is a product of that. There are times where I get with my sponsor regularly, and I go through the steps with my sponsor. But I can tell you that I'm not the guy that will ever say, I just finished the steps. I'm done. I don't think it can be done. I don't think we can finish the steps. That's my experience. My experience is I've had a long journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was taken to my first meeting when I was 13 years old. And I've been around this thing all my life. I'm much better off in it than I am around it. And what it says in that opening paragraph in step 10 is that this thing needs to continue for our lifetime. How do you finish that? How do you ever come to the consummation point on continue? I don't think you can. I know for me, my experience is the more I go, the more there is. And that's the beauty of it. It's the world and its people are often quite wrong. God knows that, and the reality is that's true today. It's true tomorrow. I'm one of the people. I'm going to be often quite wrong. Can I see that with the more I do this, the more understanding I am, the more loving I am, the less demanding I am. Those things become innate in who I am because of who I see when I'm this practice of watching becomes part of who I am. I can't deny it. When the great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is we all come as we are. And I used to think that meant the new guy, but it means we all come as we are today. I get to walk through the door today just as I am, with all my flaws, with my makeup just as I am, just like all of you do. The great thing is it doesn't matter how much time we have. Some days we're hurting, some days I'm in fear. I'm not born of that camp that fear and faith can't live in the same house. There have been days that my wife and I have prayed together because we were fearful of something, and yet we were still praying together. And fear and faith do live in our house. And so as this practice grows, what we learn is that we're all just here. And I am my worst critic. And what I've learned is that I am one of God's kids too. And then it's all good, and once again, as I see that, as the experience of it is in my shoes, my self-consciousness lessens and my God consciousness rises. My consciousness of others rises. I see you for what I am, just another human being, just another person doing the best they can. And it's a magnificent thing. The problem is that we get distracted. Last year, I got a puppy last year, and it's a little black lab puppy, and I named her Lois W. In hopes that I'd finally have an Al-Anon that would obey me, and it hasn't worked out well, just so you know. And my wife took off. She was 2 months old at the time. My wife left her and my 1-year-old grandson at home with me to watch them. So I got a 2-month-old puppy and I got my 1-year-old grandson. And my job is to watch them. And, I'm a pretty responsible, reliable guy. And I'm in the living room with them and my phone rings. And I get caught up on the phone and I'm talking to somebody on the phone. And next thing I know, I'm looking around the living room and Lois is gone. And so I'm a little bit worried. So I run out, the back door's open. So I'm outside looking for the dog. And I realized that I left my 1-year-old grandson in the living room alone. One thing happens and I get distracted. And to drive the point home, my grandson is one of the most important things in my life. And I still got distracted by a phone call. So when you think about the 10th step, and we've got 4th, that's only 2 things. I was supposed to watch Lois and Ben. And I'm supposed to watch out for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. They're low on my radar at some points in the day. They're not on my radar like Ben and Lois. It's hard to pay attention to them. It takes a determined practice over a long period of time to get, I think, sufficient at this, to where it transforms us to what I'm talking about. I know my journey with it has been a long one. And I don't get distracted as much. I know that it's become part of the fiber of who I am to watch for those things. And I still get distracted. I do. I still get distracted. But I think there's something to be said for consistency. I think there's something to be said for commitment. I know that these things are important because I've seen the fruits of them in my life. It's funny because these things that we talk about, the manifestations of self, it's like when we talk about the promises of step 10, position of neutrality, safe and protected, that the drink problem has been removed. I can tell you that I'm a recovered man today. I haven't gone to a meeting because I needed a meeting in a very long time. I go to meetings regularly. I work with new guys regularly. I go to conferences regularly. But the problem has been removed. I am in that position of neutrality. But when we talk about it, I've had sponsees ask me. It says in there, at no effort of mine. And it's taken me a long time to be able to talk about that, because when I talk about it to a sponsee, what are you talking about? No effort. I just got done making all my amends. That was effort. And I said, no, that was just cleaning up the mess you made. That was me. That was corrective action. And it's hard to talk about. Sometimes when we talk about it, it sounds like frothy emotional appeal, because it sounds like magic. It just happened. And what I know today is that those things that we're watching, the selfishness, the resentment, the dishonesty, the fear, those are the manifestations of self. They're easy to talk about. I can tell you what it looks like in my life. For me to tell you that I don't have the desire to drink, when you tell a new guy that, doesn't believe you. I didn't believe the guys that were telling me that. I didn't believe them, because not drinking was an activity for me. But what I know today is that those promises are the manifestation of God in my life. Those things that happen are the proof of the power of God. That's why I can't explain it. It's because it's the manifestation of God. And that's what I tell them. I can't explain it to you. You're right. No idea. But it's true. And one day you're going to be saying that to someone else. Can't explain it to you, but it's true. It's the real deal, man. It's the magic. One day, if you actually, as Chris says, actually, continue to take this inventory and watch for selfishness, dishonesty, and resentment and fear to crop up, and ask God at once to remove it, to pick up the phone and talk to another man about it, to actually look and see if there's any harm that has been done, any wrong that you need to clean up, and clean it up promptly. I'm in talking to my sponsor one day, and I'm having this conversation with him, and it's about something that happened that day, and we're having this conversation, and I hear from the living room from my sponsor's wife. Karen says, "Jack, you only get one chance at promptly." And I'm thinking, great. It's funny, you only get one chance at promptly. It's true, by the way. You only get one chance at promptly, and then it eats your lunch. Promptly is right now. And those, if you do those things, the manifestation of God is in your life, and the things that it says happen, whether you want them to or not. It is like magic. And love and tolerance of others is our code. Directing our attention to someone we can help. Those things happen as a result of doing the things I'm talking about. I'm on the phone with a sponsee one night in my house, and I'm talking to him about tolerance, and I'm telling you, got to muscle up, man. No, it's not fun when we tolerate people. It takes, we got to eat some crow, and we just got to let them do what they're doing. But it's worth it, I told him. We muscle up, and we let them. That's what tolerance looks like, I'm telling him. And I hang up the phone, and my son's in the kitchen, and he's back from engineering school. He's at CU studying to be an engineer. He's an engineer today, by the way. And he said, "Dad, that's not tolerance." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "It's not tolerance." I'm thinking, who are you to question my spiritual juice here? And he says, "It's not tolerance." And I said, "Well, what's tolerance?" He said, "Tolerance is the space between two objects to allow them to operate freely without friction." And I said, "F you," and sent him to his room. But as I said earlier, the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I knew it was a spiritual truth, that it was absolutely true, that it's the space between two objects to allow them to operate freely And that's the cool thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. You get to be you and I get to be me. It's really the cool thing about the world we live in. You get to be you and I get to be me, you know? You get to do what you do and I get to do what I do. And it's not personal. It's just the way we are. It's who we are, you know? And tolerance, it just happens. When I'm watching my behavior and I'm inviting God into my life, those things happen. It is absolutely miraculous, you know, and it is, and it's messy, you know. I told you I've had varied experiences with step 10. You know, I'm not an expert on this. And if you're doing something different with your sponsor right now, rock on. You know, what I know is that the varied experiences I've had have led me to this, you know, and you know, I was the guy that thought I knew about step 10 and would say I clean up the day at the end of the day. What I found is that is in the next step. And it's a check on my step 10. How'd I do today? I also know that what happened for me when I was doing it wrong was I stayed sober. And there's a lot of grace in these things. And I continued to call my sponsor and I continued to go to my home group and I continued to wash the coffee cups and clean out the ashtrays. And eventually, you know, I was open to hearing what my sponsor was actually saying and pointing at in the big book. And eventually I had an experience with it of my own. And I started doing what it said in there. And the experience became real for me, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to roll through this. And what I can tell you is what works for me today. And my experience with it is it's unshakable. You know, it holds me in good stead when I'm a mess. You know, it's like the part in this where it says it is easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I have done that. Our laurels, by the way, are our accomplishments. And what I know is as we roll into step 10, I'm coming off of making amends. And the desperation has turned into inspiration. Inspiration feels pretty good. I'm not always motivated by feeling pretty good. Sometimes I slack off because I'm feeling pretty good. You know, what I've learned today is to dig in because there's more and it gets better. And I like more, you know, that's my makeup, man. I like more and I like better. You know, and there's more here. There's more meat on the bone. Step 10 is wonderful. And you know, the juice, what I was looking for out there and could never find in any sustainable manner is right here, and it's sustainable. It says we are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcohol. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And I know there's probably a bunch of big book thumpers in here, and that's wonderful. I think that paragraph, that sentence right there has more grace and room in it than almost any other sentence in the big book. Because I used to get hung up on the fact that everybody would tell me that I have to be in fit spiritual condition. I have to be in good spiritual condition. And I can tell you right now that I have maintained my sobriety through working these steps and doing all the things that we talk about doing here when my spiritual condition has sucked. I have been angry. I have been resentful. I have been, you name it. I have been it in sobriety. And I have maintained my sobriety date. And, you know, so there's a lot of room here. What I have to do is keep doing these things when I am grieving and sad and can't take another breath, when I'm angry and things aren't going my way and I don't believe it and I can't see it. I need to keep doing these things. I need to keep asking God to remove it. I need to keep talking to the other guys. I need to keep looking to see if I'm making any amends or due. I need to keep working with the new guys. I need to keep asking for the ability to be loving and tolerant to others. I there's no slowing down. It's not get the result and do this. It's do this and you'll get the result. And I don't know when. It's on God's time. So what I know is that the maintenance of my spiritual condition is this that I'm talking about. And I get the daily reprieve because I'm doing it. I don't get the daily reprieve because the results of doing this happened. And I think it's really important that we talk about that. I have guys all the time that come into my home group and say, I'm struggling, man. You know what I tell them? I tell them, for guys like us, this is the best place on the planet for us to struggle. And if you stay here and do this stuff, you won't have to struggle all the time. Because that's been my experience. I don't have to struggle all the time. But the reality is that this is life, and we have emotions. And sometimes the emotions aren't good. Sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anger. All that stuff still happens. We're not immune to it. I remember going to my sponsor and saying to him, Don, what do we do with all these feelings? I was early in recovery. And I said, Don, what do we do? And I'd had it. And he said, Jack, what we do with feelings in Alcoholics Anonymous is we feel them. And I thought that was really bad news. And what I can tell you is the reality is it's great news. It's wonderful that we get to feel feelings. How cool is that? I have men that will laugh with me. I have men that will cry with me. It's wonderful. It's the real stuff. It's the joy, man. It is exactly why we're here. And it goes on. We close my home group with a prayer, and it's the prayer on this page. And we close my home group with, "How can I best serve thee? Thy will and not mine be done." That's how we close my home group every week. And it goes on to say, "These thoughts which must go with us constantly, we can exercise our willpower along these lines all we wish. It is the proper use of the will." When I talk about the fact that I've stayed sober through those tough times when I just don't have it in me, through maintenance of my spiritual condition, not necessarily a wonderful spiritual condition. It is, I've seen it in every guy I've sponsored where we have rough times. And the cool thing is we turn to each other. We turn to these practices, these disciplines. We don't put them down. And I've been in recovery where things got tough and I put these things down, and that did not serve me well. It says we do these practices should continue for our lifetime. And I think that it needs to, because those things happen. What it tells me, and the proper use of the will, is that willpower that it takes when I can't take a breath and my phone rings because some personal tragedy or personal issues going on, and it's just not stacking up the way I think it should. And my phone rings, and it's one of the guys I sponsor, and I don't want to answer the phone. And I answer it anyway. Or I got something that came up that day at work, and my sponsors heard it 3 times already that week, and I don't want to call them like the directions say. And I ask God to remove it, and I call him anyway. That's what I'm talking about by the maintenance of our spiritual condition. We follow through with these. That's the proper use of the will. Even though I don't want to do it, I do it anyway. I dig into these principles. My granddaughter, her name's Abigail, and she's the love of my life. And when she was 4 years old, she came to me and we were talking about something. I said, Abigail, what's your favorite color? She said, Grandpa, my favorite color is orange. And I said, that's nice. I said, Abigail, what's your second favorite color? She said, my second favorite color is orange, Grandma. What kind of clarity is that? How cool is that? Just crystal clear. And she's 6 now. She's gonna be 7 next week. And if you ask her today what her favorite color is, she'd say, Grandpa, my favorite color is orange. I said to her recently, I said, Abigail, what's your second favorite color? She said, my second favorite color is chocolate. Already the worldly clamors are getting in. Already. And that's how I am, where I was crystal clear on something. Crystal clear. I love this. I know God's the answer. And I'll do these disciplines every single day forever because of the desperation that I have. And then the inspiration that comes has me feeling good. And then all of a sudden the chocolate is more important. And the proper use of the will and the commitment required on this stuff is for me to do it anyway, is to remember that God is the answer all the time. My favorite color is God. My second favorite color is God, because it is always the answer. And I forget that, I get distracted. It doesn't matter how important it is. It doesn't matter that it's my grandson and my puppy. I get distracted over a phone call, and that's the human condition. And in all that, the world and its people are often quite wrong, and I am one of them. There's grace in that. The beauty of that is that God knows that. We're not judging each other here. We all get to come, and to live here, we have this wonderful set of pragmatic instructions to keep us all at the same table. And I don't have to beat myself up anymore. I just get to come back to the power. I don't have to roll the window down and try and shake myself awake. I don't have to stick my head out the window and drink 6 cups of coffee to try and stay awake. I just have to keep these disciplines in my life. I have to keep answering my phone and meeting with the new guys. I have to do those things, and God keeps me awake. I don't even have to look for the areas where I'm asleep. I have to do these things, and I become awakened. And I become awakened everywhere I need to be awakened at the time I need to be awakened. And it is absolutely magnificent, but I'm the guy that tomorrow I'll be telling you my second favorite color is chocolate, and it's a day for chocolate, and I'll forget this. It's my little plans and designs are what get me in trouble all the time. I've heard in a lot of different places that this is a mini 4-step, and I promise you it's not. My experience is that it's not a mini 4-step. I think this step ends at the end of step 9, and I'll say I got a couple other things, and then I'll wrap up. It's not a mini 4-step because if anyone else is in column 1 in step 10 other than me, I should be writing inventory. Step 10 is about watching me. It says it. Watch me. No one else. If someone else is there, I probably need to write a piece of inventory and share with my sponsor. I'm watching me. No one else. I can remember showing up at a buddy of mine's house. He's probably 26, 27 years sober, and I'm rolling in there. I'm 5 years sober, 6 years sober, something like that. I'm on fire. We're going turkey hunting, and I can't wait to go. I'm pumped up and I'm ready to go. And I walk in, and Bobby's sitting there. He's got a pot of coffee on, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's reading some spiritual literature, and I just want to go turkey hunting. And I said, Bobby, let's go. He said, no, Jack. He said, why don't you sit down and have a cup of coffee? I said, I'm ready to go turkey hunting. And he said, no, this is a really good reading this morning. Let's just read it and have a cup of coffee. And, I really love Bobby, and I reluctantly sat down next to him, gritting my teeth. And he said, Jack, what's up? You ready to seize the day? I said, yeah, Bobby, I'm ready to seize the day. We have plans here. He said, we're just going to have a cup of coffee and do a little reading. I said, okay, I really like to go turkey hunting though, Bobby. He said, you're ready to seize the day. He said, why don't we do this reading and we'll have this cup of coffee and then we'll go join the day. It's God's day. And it was doing fine without us. And it's going to do fine when we get to it. And that's my, there's a lot to that. And if I can come about this thing and watch and pay attention to God's world and how I am in it and just join it, it's always far better off than how I think it should be. And that's what, step 10 has grown to look like for me. And it is absolutely wonderful. And Jim, thank you for having me on this today. It's nice to be here.